Welcome to the Christian Science Monitor for Friday, February 5th, 2021. My name is PM, and let's begin with our first article. Biden's COVID-19 Balancing Act. Go big, but don't overpromise, by Linda Feldman, Washington. 2 weeks into his term, President Joe Biden faces sky-high expectations in the battle against COVID-19. He has brought in respected public health and logistics experts, stepped up the nationwide vaccination program, and put his $1.9 trillion relief package on a fast track to passage in Congress, aimed too at addressing the economic and educational hardships that have flowed from the pandemic. In a blizzard of executive actions, President Biden has also moved urgently on immigration, climate change, and racial injustice. But if Mr. Biden fails to get the pandemic under control, allowing for some semi-balance of a return to normal life in the United States, nothing else matters, analysts say. His presidency, at least for the first year, depends almost entirely on how he does on COVID, says Paul Light, a professor of public service at New York University. Part of Mr. Biden's task is to manage public expectations. His initial goal of 100 million inoculations in 100 days might have a nice ring to it, but some public health experts called it too slow and too vaccine trackers. That pace was already nearly being met by the end of the Trump administration. 6 days after inauguration, in off-the-cuff remarks, Mr. Biden suggested going to 1.5 million shots a day. Aides quickly pointed out that that was more aspirational than a new official goal. A major challenge for the Biden administration is to square its public messaging with what people are seeing in their communities. Biden is talking about 100 million vaccinations in 100 days. Excellent, says Marcia Vanderford, a former communications official at the World Health Organization and the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, or the CDC. But how does that unroll in conjunction with messages people are hearing that the vaccine clinics have been canceled in their county health departments because there's no vaccine? That's the kind of disconnect Mr. Biden's 200-page national strategy on COVID-19 response is meant to ameliorate. Goal number 1, the plan says, is to restore public trust. In his first 2 days in office, Mr. Biden signed 10 executive orders addressing the pandemic, including measures to accelerate vaccinations, ramp up testing, aid states with funds and coordination, and safely reopen schools. Mr. Biden's personal choices are also key. Unlike former President Donald Trump, whose White House was marked by high turnover and dysfunction, Mr. Biden has brought in a team of seasoned government hands that he has long known and trusted. Top among them are Chief of Staff Ron Klain, who spearheaded the White House response to Ebola in 2014, and Jeff Zients, the COVID-19 response coordinator. It was Mr. Zients who led the tech surge that fixed healthcare.gov after its disastrous rollout in 2013. By putting in people who are fully qualified to hit the ground running, President Biden can concentrate on that which he promised the American people, which is to take care of the COVID crisis first, then deal with the economy and racial inequalities and climate, says epidemiologist Kenneth Bernard, who ran the White House Office on Global Health Threats under both President Bill Clinton and George Bush. Mr. Biden, in fact, may owe his election to the pandemic. A 27-page report by Mr. Trump's chief pollster found that in 10 key states, the coronavirus was the top voting issue, and among those voters, Mr. Biden won by an almost 3-to-1 margin. Mr. Biden also has a clear edge over Mr. Trump on being seen as honest and trustworthy, the pollster Tony Fabrizio wrote. Mr. Biden begins his presidency in a bit of a honeymoon, with job approval averaging 55% in major polls and disapproval at 35%, according to Real Clear Politics. In Mr. Trump's 4 years in office, his job approval never averaged above 50%. But the new president can't rest easy, and he seems to know that. "You have my word," Mr. Biden declared the week before inauguration in laying out his COVID 19 plan. "We will manage the hell out of this operation." Frequent public communication is essential, experts say. In the Biden era, that's already in high gear. Press Secretary Jen Psaki briefs every weekday, and the president's COVID 19 response team holds at least three televised briefings a week, including Mr. Zients' chief medical advisor Anthony Fauci and Rochelle Walensky, the new head of the CDC. On Tuesday, Mr. Zients announced a plan to ship doses of vaccine directly to pharmacies beginning next week. That's on top of the administration initiative to send 10.5 million doses a week for the next 3 weeks to state governments. Since taking office, the Biden administration has boosted the number of doses being sent to the states by 20%. Mr. Biden has made COVID 19 the centerpiece of his communication, says Ms. Vanderfort, a consultant on global health communications. He ties everything else into it: the economic picture, support for workers, and his belief in science is front and center. In one sense, after the chaotic Trump years, the bar for perceived success by Mr. Biden is low. All he has to do, it may seem, is listen to his experts, stick to the science, and be straight with the public. But at the same time, Mr. Biden, in promising to solve the biggest global health crisis in more than a century, faces a high bar for success. And in these hyper-partisan times, politics are likely to color public assessment. With Mr. Trump's second impeachment trial set to begin on February 9th, partisanship will ignite anew. Mr. Biden, a centrist Democrat, is also walking a tightrope in his promise to unite the country, reaching out to Republicans, but also needing progressive Democrats to stick with him. After a 2-hour Oval Office meeting Monday with moderate Republican senators and hearing out their plan for a smaller $618 billion COVID 19 relief plan, he urged Senate Democrats in a private call Tuesday to go big on pandemic relief and pass his $1.9 trillion package via a legislative procedure that requires just a simple majority. Democrats control the 50-50 Senate only because Vice President Kamala Harris can break tie votes. The relief package will be the first major legislative vote of the Biden era, and the new president is playing hardball. But Mr. Biden knows, based on history, that his time may be limited for doing big things. And with variants of the virus emerging in the U.S., there's added urgency to step up vaccination. The Biden team is doing all the right things on COVID 19, albeit 6 months late, but they had no choice, said Dr. Bernard. He calls the Trump administration's vaccine development program, Operation Warp Speed, brilliant. Advanced procurement of a vaccine before it was even proven to be effective was absolutely the right way to go, Dr. Bernard said. But in other respects, the Trump response was very bad in terms of rolling out the vaccination plans at the local level. James Curran, a former longtime CDC official, said he's optimistic about the public health response to COVID 19 going forward. Under the Trump administration, there was a distrust of science and demeaning of people at the CDC and the FDA, or the Food and Drug Administration, and unnecessary political criticism of Dr. Fauci and others, says Dr. Curran, Dean of the Rollins School of Public Health at Emory University in Atlanta. But that's over with now. It's time to move on. And with that, let us move on. Why California bill seeks to hire older police officers. Martin Coos Special and Jacob Turcotti. Sacramento, California. Few police agencies in the United States require rookie officers to hold a college degree to join the force. The status quo persists even as an ample body of research suggests that college-educated officers use force less often and face fewer public complaints and disciplinary actions than those without a bachelor's degree. In California, where existing law allows an 18-year-old with a high school diploma or its equivalent to pursue a police career, A state lawmaker aims to raise the hiring bar. Assembly member Reggie Jones Sawyer has introduced a bill that requires new officers to either earn a 4-year degree or turn 25 years old before they could carry a gun and a badge. The Democrat from Los Angeles, who leads the Assembly's Public Safety Committee, has called his measure an attempt to ensure the hiring of only those officers capable of high level decision making and judgment in tense situations. The bill refers to neurological studies showing that young people's cognitive development, including in the areas of the brain governing impulse control and working memory, continues into the mid 20s. Most states set minimum age from 18 to 21 for police eligibility, and 4, Illinois, Nevada, New Jersey, and North Dakota, require a bachelor's degree or the equivalent based on education and experience. At least a dozen other states mandate some college education. George Floyd's death in May at the hands of Minneapolis officers has amplified criticism of police for using excessive force. California enacted a law in January that tightened its use of force standards. Mr. Jones Sawyer has asserted that recruiting more college educated or older rookie officers could save cities millions of dollars in payouts arising from excessive force lawsuits. In Los Angeles, police misconduct cases cost the city $190 million from 2005 to 2018. California's law enforcement organization remains circumspect on the proposed hiring changes. Leaders with the state's Peace Officers and Police Chiefs Association, while broadly supporting stronger education standards for new officers, have voiced concern that the bill would hinder recruiting efforts in low income and minority communities. A 2017 report on the effect of higher education on policing officers a different perspective on the bill's potential value. The study surveyed more than 950 law enforcement agencies across the country that serve areas ranging in population from less than 2,500 to more than 1 million. The research suggests that the lower rates of use of force among college educated officers and the smaller number of liability lawsuits filed against them can enhance the reputation of police in disadvantaged and minority communities. Related studies have shown that police officers with college degrees more readily embrace new approaches to the job, including community policing and procedural justice, that could further repair the profession's image. The 2017 analysis revealed that the average salary of officers with 4-year degrees runs 2.5 to 5% higher than their counterparts, and 15% higher in some cases. About 1/3 of the agency's surveyed cities and inability to afford bigger salaries as a reason for foregoing a college degree requirement. On the other hand, the report also found that officers who graduated college are more adept at writing reports. Underappreciated as a part of police work, the skill can improve the rigor of investigations, translating into fewer false confessions and wrongful convictions, and fewer lawsuits against officers. This next article is titled, "He Grew Up Wanting for Nothing. Now He Gives Other Students a Leg Up," by Chandra Thomas Whitfield. 5 years ago, Martine Kaligi was living a comfortable life near Denver. The son of an emergency room doctor, dad, and a clinical pharmacist mom, the 14-year-old honors student wants for nothing. Like many teens, he had found himself yearning to better understand the world, how it works, and why certain things were the way they were. In particular, he wondered why his life seemed so dramatically different from that of the people he had often see asking passerby for money, food, and shelter. He recalls riding home from cross-country running practice and seeing people asking for help. "I'm living this life where I'm going home to have dinner and there's this person just sitting out there holding a sign," recalls Mr. Kaligi, who turned 19 in January. "And I'm like, why is that okay? Especially in the United States, which is supposed to be one of the wealthiest and best places on earth to live, that so many people are living in poverty." And so, at 14, an age when many teens are preoccupied with their own experiences, he set out to better understand the circumstances of others and to explore difficult questions about privilege, access, and inequality in society. Some of the answers he sought came when he enrolled in a community service class at Campus Middle School in Greenwood Village, Colorado, where he and his classmates raised money for children in the foster care system. Helping out felt good, he says. The project also opened up his eyes to the great need that exists among people experiencing homelessness in Colorado. That first school project lit a fire in him, and he felt he had to do more to help. So, what began as an informal group of friends passing out care packages to those in need downtown Denver on weekends evolved into 2016 into a youth led nonprofit, Helping the Homeless Colorado, which helped to raise more than $130,000 to provide basic necessities. More than 25,000 people engaged with the group's 2019 hashtag Spread the Love campaign, which invited Coloradoans to share, with permission, photos and videos of themselves talking with someone experiencing homelessness. This is truly a student run operation, and they have managed to pull this off. All magnificently, said Donald Burns, a former Helping the Homeless Colorado board member. They all deserve a great commendation and many cheers, he said. Finding focus? In the fall of 2019, Mr. Kaligi and his team of students volunteers decided to step back from their work and revamp the organization. Last June, after months of huddling in person and later virtually due to the pandemic to brainstorm about strategic planning, fundraising, and coalition building, they came up with a new plan. To help more young people, the team renamed the organization E-Equal and shifted its focus to the educational needs of students living in poverty, particularly those in unstable housing. The organization has since raised and distributed $15,000 in college scholarship grants for students grappling with homelessness. There are an estimated 1.5 million homeless students in the U.S., of which about 23,000 are in Colorado. Mr. Kaligi says he and his cohorts strongly believe that investing in education is one of the most effective ways to help break the cycle of poverty. In my calculus class of 30 students senior year, there very well could have been 4 or 5 students who were either going to be sleeping in a car, going to a shelter, or staying with a friend just because they didn't have a home of their own, says Mr. Kaligi. But when I'm sitting next to them, nobody knows. Nobody talks about that because we're all taught not to talk about money and stuff, which is understandable, but because we don't, it's so easy for them to fly under the radar. I think the worst part is the stigma. Mr. Kaligi says he and many of his classmates were shocked to learn that the 2019 class valedictorian had been homeless, something they only found out when she shared her experience in her graduation speech. Afterwards, I was like, oh my gosh, we have to talk. Like, you're literally the kind of people we're trying to serve, he says. Later, we ended up talking about her experience on the phone, and I learned a lot. Valuable work. Mr. Kaligi's efforts have earned him a long list of honors. He won the President's Volunteer Service Award 3 times and was a TEDx speaker and leader in the global Ashoka Young Changemakers program. This past spring, he was honored with the Prudential Spirit of Community Award and the Gloria Barron Prize for Young Heroes, which included a combined donation of $12,500 to E-Equal. Last year, he was admitted to Harvard University, which he delayed by a year so he could focus on E-Equal. One E-Equal scholarship recipient, who requested that her name be withheld to protect her privacy, said she can attest that the nonprofit is living up to its mission. The organization made a difference in my life by removing the stress of trying to figure out how I would pay for my tuition, explains the student now enrolled in Arapahoe Community College in Littleton, Colorado. She says she has been living in a motel for the past few months. Their help also reminded me that there are people out there who want to see someone succeed on achieving their goal as a student. The student communicates regularly with Mr. Kaligi by phone and email and says she is constantly amazed by the work that Mr. Kaligi and his fellow youth leaders carry out so selflessly. His organization is important because it brings awareness to the society we live in, she says. It focuses on the struggle homeless students go through. That not all homeless people are drug addicts, have mental illness, or are a threat. This organization helps to bring understanding that people experiencing homelessness come from all different backgrounds. Mr. Burns, who is the co founder of the Burns Institute for Poverty Research at the Colorado Center on Law and Policy, praises the passion and dedication of Mr. Kaligi and his peers bring to their work. This is very, very important and valuable work, and it provides some gifted but needy students a real opportunity to overcome financial hardship and some systemic discrimination, he said. Looking ahead, Mr. Kaligi plans to start at Harvard in the fall. Before he goes, he hopes to have laid the foundation for the organization to begin running youth led clubs at a handful of middle and high schools in the metro Denver area. The aim will be to educate young people about homelessness with an emphasis on breaking stereotypes and combating misinformation. Like it or not, homeless people, because homelessness is part of someone's personality, he says, is just a phase that they're going through. So I like to say, people experiencing homelessness. The ultimate goal is to expand equal programming to more schools across the Rocky Mountain state and eventually nationwide. Oh my gosh, education, it's everything. So, why wouldn't we invest in it, says Mr. Kaleki. I think it's the solution. This next article is titled Tradition Meets Art in the Malaysian Mask Shop by Shahrul Esi Ramadurai, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Xiao Ho Few's studio is tucked away in a quiet lane in an industrial area just outside Kuala Lumpur. It's easy to miss the unassuming sign outside, Wan Sang Hang Dragon and Lion Arts Workshop. But the inside, cluttered with dozens of colorful lion masks in various stages of production, paint bottles and brushes, piles of thin wooden strips, is anything but ordinary. Someone is twisting long rattan slivers into near perfect circles to form the base frame. Someone else is coating a thick layer of red lacquer on a massive lion head. A third craftsman is attaching yellow fur on top of an almost finished mask. In a far corner, Master Xiao, as he is often called for his expertise, is quietly sharpening rattan sticks, even as he keeps a benevolent eye on his apprentices. At 65, he's one of the most respected creators of lion head masks in Malaysia, where the Chinese community makes up more than a quarter of the population. If not for the pandemic, dancers hidden in these elaborate costumes would soon be moving fluidly down the street to the sounds of clashing cymbals and throbbing drums, casting out evil spirits and summoning good luck for the Lunar New Year, which begins February 12th. A self-taught artisan, Mr. Xiao has been making lion heads since 1986, after spending a decade as a lion dancer. His daughter Xiao Hu Qing translates his rapid-fire Mandarin as he recounts how he started making costumes himself. Importing from China, he found high prices for low quality. Bamboo is not so robust and breaks easily, so I changed it to rattan that is more flexible and lasts longer, strong enough to protect the acrobatic dancers and supply enough to form the masks, fluttering ears and eyelids. At first, he only made masks for his own use, but his reputation soon spread within the country and then abroad. Now I export to many other countries, including China, he laughs. Indeed, his stunning lion heads have patrons from as far away as Australia, France, and the United States. The workshop produces more than 300 annually, but this pandemic year has been a lean time for business, says Miss Xiao. Chong Fu Dick, a longtime client and lion dancer in Kuala Lumpur, says the workshop's quality is unmatched. Mr. Xiao understands customers' demands and meets them perfectly, even when I want a different design, something totally new, like a mask in black and blue, he says with a laugh. Lion dancers started during the Han Dynasty around 200 AD and were brought into Malaysia by immigrants more than a century ago. For Mr. Xiao, it's an integral part of Chinese culture here. Making lion heads and teaching the dance, he has students coming from all over the world for both. Is his little contribution to keeping the tradition of his community alive. In addition to Lunar New Year, the dances are also performed at temple ceremonies, weddings, corporate events, and competitions where daring lion dancers prance and leap atop long poles, symbolically reaching greater heights. Each lion consists of two dancers, one acting as the head and the other bringing up the body or the flowing tail. To the master craftsman, it is a test of not just skill, but also grace and discipline. For a lion dance performance to come together, many things are important. Not only the beauty of the costume, but also the harmony between the dancers, as well as the music and expression, he says. Wang Xianlong, age 29, has already been learning from the master for more than 10 years. I think being a dancer has improved my skill as a mask maker because I know the needs of the person using this, he says, pointing to the wooden frame in his hand. You know how some people can't live without football? I need this for my happiness. While the workshop looks like an efficient assembly line, every artist knows the nuts and bolts of the entire process. Creating a new head takes 7 to 10 days, starting with a skeleton of rattan sticks. The joints and ears and mouth flaps are molded with wire before the frame is wrapped in resin paper. Then comes the painted design that gives the lion its unique personality. Then a coat of glossy lacquer, and then fur, ribbons, and pom-pom balls. Finally, the head is attached to the long train that forms the fluid body of the lion. The most traditional motifs are taken from Romance of the Three Kingdoms, an influential 14th century text about the Han Dynasty. A yellow lion with a white beard indicates the warrior Li Bei, considered benevolent and righteous, and a red lion with a black beard, the brave and loyal Guan Yu. However, nowadays there are not just classic reds and yellows, but also shocking pinks and electric blues, as well as novel patterns, even clients' brand names. Each color and design used to have a symbolic meaning, but now clients want modern things, Mr. Xiao says, his voice trailing off wistfully. This is not just my job. This is my passion, he finally says. And as far as he's concerned, flashy colors or not, the lion dance tradition has survived the test of time and will never die. And he will continue doing his bit to help it thrive. Well, that concludes the reading of the Christian Science Monitor for Friday, February 5th. My name is Pam, and I appreciate you inviting me into your home today. Be safe until we meet here again. Be blessed and make it a great day.